Hi, fifth graders. This lesson today is on finding the area and perimeter of rectangles. Make sure you have your math notebook ready so that you can take good notes. And in the top right-hand corner of your paper, if you would please put a St. Clair heading. Go ahead and stop this video, put your heading on your paper, and then start the video again when you're ready to continue. Okay, here we go. So in the top right-hand corner of your math notebook, you should have your name, your number, today's date, and math with Mrs. Pollock. Now we're going to put a title at the top of this page so that you can remember what this lesson was about when you need to refer back to it. The title of this lesson will just be simply called Finding the Area and Perimeter of Rectangles. Go ahead and write that at the top of your page. Stop this video if you need to, and when you're finished, press play to continue. Okay, great. Let's move on. We're going to start today with a definition for what area really is. Area is a measure of the surface or region inside a closed boundary. Today, the boundary that we're talking about is going to be rectangles. If you look at this drawing here, you'll notice that this looks similar to what we would call a 9x4 array. The area that we're measuring is everything inside of this rectangle. So we're talking about 9 rows across and 4 rows down, but we're talking about every single row and every single column. So it's a 9x4. Stop this video and write the definition for area. Fifth graders, I know how smart you are, and you've probably already figured out that to find the area of this rectangle would mean to count the number of square units inside of the rectangle. That's very easy to do, but you can also do it by multiplying, taking the 9 times the 4. Simply, the formula for area is to do area equals the length times the width. A stands for area, L stands for length, and W stands for width. Let me just fix my multiplication sign here in the middle. Go ahead and stop the video and write down the formula for finding the area of the rectangle. Great. So underneath that formula, we're going to plug in these numbers for the length and width of this rectangle. So underneath where you just wrote the formula, you're going to write that A stands for area, and it equals the length, which is 9, times the width. Whoops, sorry about that. Let me undo that W there. Oh, go away. There you go. Okay. Getting ahead of myself here. 9 times 4, the width of this rectangle, is 4 units. So our total area would be area equals 36. Now, this part is very important. We always want to measure in square units. And since I don't know if these technically are centimeters we're measuring, or inches, or millimeters, or feet, or kilometers, I'm just simply going to write 36 square, and you can abbreviate that with an SQ, units. Great. Let's try another practice problem. Follow along with me and write this on your paper. You have the formula already listed, so we're simply going to take a look at this and see that this rectangle has a length of 10 inches and a width of 2 inches. Now we know that that rectangle really isn't 10 inches long, but we're pretending that it is, and we're measuring it. It's 10 inches by 2 inches. So on your paper you would write A for area equals, remember it's length times width, and we're just going to plug these numbers into the formula. So it would be 10 times 2. Then we write A for area equals 20, but we don't just want to leave it at 20. Remember, we're measuring in square units, and the unit for this particular rectangle happens to be inches. So we're going to write it like this. There's a couple different ways we can do it actually. We can write 20 square, we can abbreviate the word square, and then put inches. Or another way that we could write this would be 20, and we can say inches and abbreviate that inches with an IN squared, just like we've learned to do with numbers. We're squaring that unit, which are the inches. Stop this video now and make sure that you have this problem copied down in your notebook. Okay, here we go. We're ready to do some practice problems. So we're finding the area of a rectangle by multiplying the length by the width. On your notebook paper now, if you would please number your paper 1 through 9, and then we'll go through a couple of the problems together, and then I'll have you do the rest of them by yourself. Stop the video now and number your paper. Great. For number 1, we can see that the length of this rectangle is 6 kilometers. The unit we're using is kilometers. The width of the rectangle is 4 kilometers. So to find the area of this rectangle, we'll multiply 6 times 4. Our answer for area, if you would please write on your paper, let me just put to the side here how your page should look. Your page should look like this. Number 1, and you're going to put A for area equals 6 times 4, and underneath of that you can put that A for area equals 24 kilometers. Remember, we're measuring in kilometers, and it's always a squared unit, so it's kilometers squared. And I'm going to write that here underneath the first rectangle, 24 kilometers squared. Okay, if you need to stop the video at any time, go ahead and then continue when you're ready. Number 2, the length of this rectangle, we could say, is 3 centimeters, and its width is 6 centimeters. It really doesn't matter either way that you do it, because you might look at the rectangle a little bit differently, and maybe you want to say that the length is 6 and the width is 3 centimeters. Either way you do that, you're going to have that A equals 3 times 6, or 6 times 3. And then, because that's the commutative property of multiplication, it doesn't matter the order that you do it, you still get the same answer. For number 2, A equals 18. And the units we're using for this one are centimeters, so it's going to be 18 centimeters squared. And that's what you should have for number 2. Go ahead now, stop the video, and work problems 3, 4, 5, and 6. When you have your answers written down following this format over here that we've been doing, go ahead and play the video again to check your answers. Okay, here are the final answers for problems 1 through 6. Go ahead and compare what you have. How did you do? Hopefully you got them all correct, and you remembered to put your unit after each number and to square it. Let's do the last 3 together here, because they should be fairly quick. The length of number 7 is 7 meters. The width is 6 meters, and I know that 7 times 6 equals 42, and it would be meters squared. Number 8, we have 4 kilometers times 2 kilometers gives us an area of 8 kilometers squared. And number 9, we have 9 meters times 12 meters. Now how many of you are thinking, I don't know 12 times 9? Well, do you know 12 times 10? Let's see, that's 120. So if I took 12 away from that, guess what? I would have an answer of 108 meters squared. Okay, now we're ready to move on to perimeter. We're going to find the perimeter of a rectangle. Perimeter really of any two-dimensional object is the distance around that two-dimensional object. So we're talking about it's like having a fence around a yard, and you're measuring the length and the width of both sides. So the formula inside of this box says that perimeter equals length plus width plus length plus width. Well, that's a pretty lengthy formula to have to write, and it might be a little bit easier and better understood if we use the formula here for perimeter 2 times the length plus the width. Stop the video now and write the definition for the word perimeter. Great. You're doing a fantastic job. Now we're going to write the formula for perimeter. And I'd like you to use the formula that I've circled here in red. If we follow the order of operations for that formula, we would always be adding the length plus the width first, and then we would go back and do 2 times whatever the length plus the width was. So we're going to write that perimeter equals 2 times, and then in parentheses, length plus width. Just like that. Stop the video if you need to so you can get that written down, and then press play when you're ready to continue. Okay, following this formula for finding perimeter, we can go ahead and find the perimeter of this particular rectangle. Notice that the length is 6 inches and the width is 3 inches. Now our formula for perimeter says to take 2 times the length plus the width. So let's add together the length of 6 inches and the width of 3 inches, and we would get a total of 9 inches. So we could say that P equals 2 times 6 for the length plus 3 for the width. Okay, stop the video now and write that down on your paper. Great. Now let's continue with that formula, finding perimeter. That P for perimeter equals 2 times, and let's say what's inside the parentheses, 9. So finally, P equals 18. And don't forget, we have units. We're measuring this particular rectangle in inches. But they are not square units. They are simply how many inches go all the way around this rectangle. So we would only write 18 inches. When we're finding perimeter, we do not square the units. Okay, here we go. Let's try another one. We're finding the perimeter of this rectangle. Remember your formula. 2 times the length plus the width. So on our paper, we're going to write that P, which will stand for perimeter, is equal to 2 times, and it looks like the length here we're going to say is 7, and the width we're going to say is 4. So 2 times 7 plus 4. That gives us P for perimeter equals 2 times 11. So the perimeter of this particular rectangle is 22. And notice now the unit we're using are yards. So we put YD for yards. 22 yards would be the perimeter. Bonus question for you now. What would be the area of this particular rectangle? Stop the video here and write down on your paper, plug in the numbers into the area formula and find the area of this rectangle. Okay, Hopefully you wrote something that looks like this. Area equals, remember, it's length times width. So we should have A equals 7 times 4. The area, everything inside of this rectangle, equals 28. And remember, our units have to be squared, so it will be 28 square yards. And we can write that just like this. Yards squared. Okay, now let's have you try a problem on your own. For this rectangle, I would like you to find the area of the rectangle and also the perimeter of the rectangle. Stop this video now, show all of your work, and when you're finished, press play to continue and check your answers. Okay, how did you do? For area, you should have written 16 times 9. This triangle, or rectangle, excuse me, has a length of 16 centimeters and a width of 9 centimeters. The area of this rectangle, 16 times 9, is 144 centimeters squared. Did you remember to square the units? The perimeter of this rectangle, you would plug in the 16 and the 9 inside the parentheses for the length plus the width. Then you would get P for perimeter equals 2 times 25. The perimeter of this rectangle, all the way around, all 4 sides, whoops, let's not move it off the screen, would equal a total of, everybody see my mistake here? I get ahead of myself in my math. Let me erase that, if I can get it there. I don't know if I can erase it. I'm going to have to cross it out. I'm sorry. See, it always helps to double check your work. The perimeter is 50 centimeters. Okay. I know some of you were thinking, Mrs. Pellet got the answer wrong. Yes, I did. Okay. All right, here we go. We have 5 practice problems for you to complete. On your paper, notice they're not numbered 1 through 5, but rather they're numbered A, or lettered A through E. So we're going to go ahead and make sure that you're labeling your paper as you go. So the first one is going to be A. And you're going to be finding the perimeter and the area for A, for B, for C, for D, and for E. Stop the video now, find the area and the perimeter for each of these rectangles, and when you're ready to check your answers, press play to continue. Okay, take a look at your answers and see how you did. I'm still working on the last one here, just to get this written down. I hope you'll excuse my messy writing as I'm writing with my finger on the iPad. And work this last one here. 24 centimeters. And the area would be 32 centimeters squared. Okay, check all your answers there for the perimeter and the area of those 5 rectangles and see how you did. Excellent job, 5th graders. That ends our lesson on finding the area and the perimeter of rectangles. See you in class tomorrow.